All right. A little bit early, but that's okay. Pretty much. Oh, I cannot believe how cold it is today. So let's get this going. So first of all, for the people out there, welcome back to the 8th of June Carter's Corner Daily. I'm your host, Travis Carter. A couple of people in the chat room, by the looks of it, which is kind of cool. I just want to say hi to everyone. Hope you're enjoying it. So today's been a bit of a quiet one on um, press release front. There's only been 3 done so far. So before we start, I want to just jump onto one of the press releases that we did yesterday. So it was announced that there's going to be a new rail car manufacturing plant in the Bellevue area. So since I've done this show, there's been a bit of, let's say, friction. So for those who don't know much about the backstory, there was a genuine train manufacturing train part. They did the sleepers, they did the rail, all that sort of stuff for the train tracks. Actually, in Midland, I think it's on Roberts Road. It was one of the last genuine. Sorry, just coffee. It was one of the last genuine actual manufacturing places in WA. So manufacturing in Australia has been decimated since the Lima Protocol. I think it was 72, possibly 73. My history isn't the greatest, but it was like early 70s. It was a initiative promoted by the United Nations to take first world countries, which Australia was classed at the time, and shift to assist third world countries in catching up, shift 30% of their manufacturing from first world countries like Australia, Britain, America into third world countries like China, India, to help them and assist them into catching up on their economies. At the time, it was pretty good, but I personally feel they've gone way, 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 way too far to the point where our manufacturing industry has been absolutely decimated. And it hasn't been a gradual thing. This has taken decades. So between the red tape, the green tape, like all the environmental protection things, they've had a lot of problems. So when the proposal for this first came through, there was a petition from the area. 600 signatures got tabled by the Honourable Charles Smith. Absolutely nothing came of it. They just totally ignored it, just didn't care. So the locals are not happy with this. Yeah, I think that a lot of the locals, from what I've spoken to on social media, have reached out to us. Their biggest concerns was, you've already got a manufacturing plant. Why did we need a new one somewhere where they didn't want it? So there's a lot of things they weren't happy with, and I don't think this has been handled very well by the state government. I applaud them for trying to recreate manufacturing in Australia, and with the very limited resources which they have, because a lot of the components that they need for these trains, we don't produce in Australia. We don't produce anything in Australia. So they didn't have a choice. They had to go overseas. I get that. But what's not in these contracts is a time frame for the construction of these things, from what I can see. So let's say, for example, there's a company producing the frames for the trains. If a company that's Australian based can start creating variable price frames, does the state government have the option to move the contract from an international company to an Australian-based company? There's no talk about that. There's no talk about producing these trains 100% in Australia. This is a really big chance for the state of WA to become world leaders in the production of trains, the quality of the trains, and all that sort of side of things. I think the government's kind of dropped the ball on this. They could have done this a lot better. But needless to say, an attempt was made, and I can't argue with that one. So, yeah, there's a lot of people that weren't happy. I can see the good parts of it, but there's also a lot of things that could have been. That's neither here nor there. All right, so for the people in the chat, feel free to chuck your comments in. It does pop up on the stream. People can see what you're saying. I don't edit these or filter these in any way. So thank you for coming on the stream. Have some fun. Send us a message. Say g'day. Now, I was originally going to go from oldest press release to the newest. Hay fever's been playing up today. But as I was about to come to air, we actually did have a press release. Oh yeah. I must be allergic to bullshit because it's from Roger Cook and Mark McGowan. So let's go have a look at what our two favourite people want to talk about today. And this is fresh. This is only like 15 minutes old. Here we go. And let's turn this one on. Here we go. So obviously, Honourable Mark McGowan, Premier / Treasurer / Dictator, and the Honourable Roger Cook, MLA, Minister for Health, hopefully ex-Minister for Health. All right, here we go. Coffee's in, everything's in. We're good to go. 30 to 49-year-olds in WA now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine at state-run clinics. So they're really pushing ahead with this. All Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people over 16 are now eligible. Bookings through rollup.wa.gov.au or 13COVID. First regional community vaccination clinic open in the southwest. Now, I know I harp on a lot about people should be treated purely based on each situation. The thing you've got to remember, especially with a lot of the Aboriginal, how can I word this whilst being diplomatic? People's DNA, their genome, their actual biological makeup are different. So people in different countries handle different medicines differently. So that's why a lot of these vaccine trials can take 4 to 10 years, because the different substances will be, depending on what your descendancy, the way you react to different medication will be country. Like if a Caucasian people will react to alcohol differently to an Aboriginal person, will react differently to alcohol to a African American person differently to an Asian person who's got pure Asian descendancy. So each person will react to things differently. So we have seen with the SARS virus and a few others that the coronavirus is actually particularly deadly in Torres Strait Island community. So I actually don't mind this. This isn't a thing where they're saying, oh, let's just treat Aboriginals better or treat them worse, or Torres Strait Islanders better or worse. This is purely the virus is actually very, very harmful to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people purely because of their DNA, purely because of their. It's not no fault of theirs. They legitimately, this is a bad virus for them. Same as for elderly people. It is proven that it is an elderly killer. So I've got no problems with things like that because it's a must, unfortunately. All right, so let's have a look at what's going on here. So Western Australians aged between 30 and 49 will be able to get the COVID-19 vaccine in West Australia by booking with bookings open today. Now, they haven't said whether that's AstraZeneca or not. That's further down. Okay, West Australia is fast-tracking the rollout of COVID-19 vaccine program, offering the vaccine to all eligible West Australians who are 30 years of age and over. Oh, wow, that's me. Okay. Those aged between 30 and 49 will receive the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine at state-run clinics, and people aged over 50 and over will continue to receive the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Bit of an interesting one on this one. So, Pisanaki, I think that's how I pronounce the name, the Queensland Premier, aged 51. Government states that AstraZeneca is the preferred vaccine, but she still chose to go with the Pfizer vaccine. As far as I know, she hasn't made a comment as to why. Maybe she just feels young at heart, believes beliefs are more facts. In line with the decision made by the National Cabinet, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people aged 16 and over are now also eligible for the vaccine. The community vaccination clinics in Claremont Showgrounds, which operates 7 days a week, will be scaled up from Thursday, June 10th to cope with increased demand with a new capacity of about 2,000 appointments a day. So there's 2 million people. Let's divide that by 2,000. Okay, so that's only going to take 1,000 days to vaccinate everyone. Okay, great work. From Monday the 14th, the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine will be offered 7 days per week, while the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine will also be administered on Mondays through to Wednesday. From Monday, June 21, the Joondalup and Kwinana community vaccination clinics will also start to provide both types of COVID-19 vaccines on different days, with capacity to administer 15 2,000 vaccine days respectively. This is going to take a really long time to vaccinate. How long I can delay it for before they actually make it? The Redcliffe Community Vaccination will commence administrating both vaccines the following week from 8, offering 700 appointments a day. By the end of the month, more than 30,000 vaccine appointments will be available each week at the 4 state-run clinics in the area. In addition, with additional clinics to come online as the take-up increases. This is kind of encouraging for me. It shows that people are actually making their own mind up. As much as the government is pushing this, it's still a very personal decision whether the COVID-19 vaccine or not. Personally, I'm going to delay it as long as I possibly can. I still do not feel they've tested it enough. There's a lot of situations which have not been tested to my understanding, and I believe that in my family warrant taking. But anyway, vaccination clinics in regional areas will also be offering both types of vaccines, with the first regional state-run Bunbury COVID-19 vaccination clinic open this Thursday, June 10th, with a capacity to offer more than 600 appointments. The Bunbury Clinic, located in Bunbury Homemaker Centre, will be open 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. to administer the Pfizer COVID vaccine on Tuesday to Thursday, and the AstraZeneca appointment Mondays and Fridays. I find it interesting how they don't say it's a COVID-19 vaccine. They say it's a COVID vaccine. So I'm wondering if they're trying to imply that this will work for all forms of COVID. It'll be interesting, or whether that's just a typo they've got to put in. There are more than 750 health service clinics operated by the West Australian Country Health Service in GPs, respiratory clinic, Aboriginal medical services that are currently administering COVID-19 vaccine regions. So you can get your vaccine if you want it. It'd be awesome if you do. Bookings can be made from today, 8th of June, with the Pfizer vaccine for people 30 and over to be administered from Thursday. All Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people aged 16 and over are now eligible. Already know that. And appointments are still available for people in the Phase 1A and 1B cohorts, including people who work in disability and aged care and young adults with a specified medical condition. All your details are here. Okay, comment from Mark Gown. It wasn't that long ago that we all wished for a vaccine to help us out of this pandemic, actually. No, it was not. With more doses now becoming available, West Australia can get on with it and get vaccinated. We opened up the COVID-19 vaccination rollout to a broader group of people in an effort to build momentum and get more people vaccinated. WA's expanded rollout is in accordance with the advice from health experts to provide the Pfizer vaccine to everyone aged 30 to 49 and AstraZeneca vaccine to people 50 and older. So these same health experts also said that AstraZeneca did not cause blood clots. Right. The expanded rollout will mean state-run clinics will be extra busy, but I ask people to be patient while we ramp up our clinics. The so-called health experts, especially the ones in nations, also claimed that human-to-human contamination was not possible. We saw how that went. State-run clinics are just one way to get getting the vaccine, so I call on the Commonwealth to deliver more vaccines to our local GPs and move quickly to allow pharmacies to join the rollout efforts. The time is now, and this is your chance to roll up your sleeve, get the COVID-19 vaccine, and protect yourselves, the family and the WA community. Really hammed it up. I wonder how much money they're getting in donations to the Labor Party. So comments from Roger Cook. This is a great opportunity for a whole new cohort of Western Australians to be vaccinated against COVID-19. We'd like to see everyone vaccinated so we can protect our wonderful lifestyle in WA. Alright, so let's get this in writing from the Health Minister and all that sort of stuff. At what point will they drop the state of emergency? What percentage of people need to be vaccinated before they'll drop the state of emergency? That's something that they have never stated, and I don't think they ever will. Bookings for people aged 30 to 49 now open. I encourage all adults in Western Australia to roll up for WA and get vaccinated as soon as possible. So another infomercial for pro-vaccines. Just another one from the McGowan government. I was actually kind of expecting that to be another lockdown, or we're closing the borders with Victoria because they've got 2 new cases, or something along those lines. I'm kind of sick of these info commercials. I would really, really love to see some real news coming from Parliament House. Just nothing really comes through. Kind of disappointing. Now, for all you environmentalist buffs out there, I've got one for you guys. Okay, so this is from the Honourable Amber Jade Sanderson, MLA Minister for Environment. Now, I was having a bit of a read of this one earlier. It came through about 6 o'clock this morning, 6 a.m. So this one is saying, I'll read it and then we'll let you know. So strong emissions reductions targets approved for next stage for Pluto LNG. So Pluto LNG is like a big massive pipeline from the offshore oil rigs to the onshore oil rigs. I think that's how it works. So it's owned by Woodside. They have like a 90% ownership. There's a Japanese company 5% and another company. So let's see what's happening on with Pluto. And it's not the planet / asteroid / whatever you want to call Pluto. It's actually a mining thing up rather. So Pluto LNG, natural gas, project now subject to a 30% emission reduction target by 2030, so that's 9 years, and targeting net zero emissions by 2050. So Labor is pushing ahead with their, global warming agenda again. Okay, so new greenhouse gas abatement programs applies to entire projects. So this is things that have already passed EPA approvals. Will now have to change their processes to match this, including existing Train 1 and proposed Train 2. So there's already one pipeline. They want to build a second one. So both will now need to meet these guidelines. Decisions made following expert independent advice from the Environmental Protection Authority. So the decision was made because of the EPA. The Minister has now requested that EPA review Woodside's ministerial statement to reflect the revised program, ensuring strengthened compliance within targets. Okay, so what they're talking about here, when you've got big mining companies and go into agreements with the state government to do things, generally they get what's called a state agreement. So the state agreement is something like the Ecology Act 2002. So what happens is there's an agreement between a company and the state on how they're going to actually become law. Now, because it is a black and white law, you go to court. If there's a discrepancy with it, you go to arbitration instead, which acts like it's court. A lot of these proceedings are supposed to be private and confidential. They're not supposed to be leaked. Someone leaked the meteorology. That's how come everyone knew what was the deal was with changes in the within the act. So let's keep going. So there's something here for the Pluto LNG thing. So that's what they're talking about changing here. Environment Minister Amber J. Sanderson has approved Pluto LNG's new greenhouse gas abatement program, GGAP, significantly reducing the project's projected carbon impact and providing another step towards the development of a second train at the facility. Now, this is kind of interesting because they're saying greenhouse gas abatement program. So I always thought greenhouse gases were not carbon dioxide. because pretty much everything breathes out carbon dioxide except plants, and they breathe it in. Is CO2 a greenhouse gas? Quick Google search. Scientific America. So that's just loading up now. I didn't think it was actually. It was a greenhouse, and I accidentally closed the window. That paint locked. Okay, so it is the primary greenhouse gas released through humans. Very good chance here. So we've got carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluoride carbons, perfluoride carbons, sulfur hexafluoride. Wow, there's some really funky names. So there's about 5 or 6 nitrous oxide. Got that one. Yeah, there's 6 greenhouse gases. So CO2 is the main that human. Alright, so let's keep going with this press release. I didn't think it was actual class as greenhouse gas. Everything. The decision to be made. The decision has been made following expert independent advice from the Environmental Authority. I wouldn't have called the EPA authority, but anyway. Approvals for the construction of the operation for 2 trains at the Pluto LNG project were granted in December 2007. Oh, hey Taz, welcome to the stream. How's the family going? Welcome back to the, by the way. Approvals for the construction, done that one. The enhanced GGAP, greenhouse gas abatement program. Intern and long-term targets to achieve a 30% emission reductions from approved levels by 2030, net zero by 2050 across the entire project. I really don't get why they push so hard on CO2. I find it fascinating considering CO2 is a naturally occurring gas. It's plant food. Legitimately, plants need CO2. A lot of people will complain that CO2 levels have never been higher and it's going to warm the globe and all this sort of crap. That's it's reported that at the moment we're about 200 parts per million, something, might be 400 parts per million. During the last time that there was an ice polar caps, greenhouse emissions was up over the 4,000 mark, astronomical. And the whole entire planet was covered in gorgeous, and that's why we have all our fossil fuels, because the plants die, they go underneath the ground, then they form coal, oil, those fossil fuels from carbon. Anyway, so I still find it strange. So measures to support achievement of long-term targets. A requirement to offset any shortfall in meeting the interim targets, including details of how these offsets will meet concrete standards. Additional reporting requirements. So that's just about, this last one is just about keeping it transparent and open. Just plant more trees. For the more CO2 you produce, just plant more trees. It's a pretty simple thing. I just hope they are not allowed to participate in carbon trading, because that's just a crock of shit. Doesn't do anything, doesn't help anything. Just an additional tax for the government to hurt these businesses that are hiring a huge amounts of people. Let's see some real achievements, if you will. So a lot of these places up there's just acres and acres and hectares of absolutely vacant land. So if you want to actively, what's the word I'm looking for? Reduce your CO2 emissions and stuff like that. Still produce the CO2, no worries. But for every ton of CO2 you produce, you've got to be able to produce, counter it with enough trees, because the trees are the best way to stop CO2. It cools the planet. They're just great. You can use the wood for furniture, buildings. There's so much. Trees are just awesome. The new requirements apply to the entire Pluto LNG project, representing a significant reduction in emissions of both the existing Train 1 and new Train 2 levels approved in 7. Okay, so they're modifying 2007. Okay, that's fine, whatever. The new GGAP outlines the efficiency measures to achieve a reduction in greenhouse gases emissions by approximately 1.2 million tonnes per annum, less than the original approval by 2030 for the facility. So that's a bucket load of CO2. With the new GGAP now in place, the Minister has asked the Environment Protection Authority to inquire into the reporting of greenhouse gas emissions conditions in the project's ministerial statement. So I'm not going to read all of this to you because it's just a crock of shit. Sorry, it is. The environment is important, but you don't need to be doing all this sort of crap. A simple policy where for every ton of CO2 you produce, you got to plant X amount of trees. It's simple. These companies have the money to be able to do that. They've got the strength to do it. To be able to do something like this is totally irrelevant, not necessary, and a huge waste of money and time. So let's go have a look at what the minister says, and then we'll. What I did do, I did have a bit of a snoop around. Apparently, a lot of this is in a statement coming from Woodside. It was their decision to do it. So I have a sneaky suspicion. Government said, right, if you want approval for this, you'll need to do this, and then they said, yeah, no worries, we'll go broke. So comments from Amber Jade Sanderson. The enhanced greenhouse gas abatement program brings it Pluto LNG development's emission reduction targets in line with the McGowan government's greenhouse gas emission policies for major projects. So apparently they've got across the board they want to become carbon neutral. That's probably why Kirkup tried to be. I think it was 20. What was it? 24. He wanted to be 100% greenhouse. Cost him the election. This is a significant advance in the management of greenhouse gas emissions for the important project, both the existing and new trains to reduce emissions by 30% by 2030 and set a clear trajectory towards achieving a net zero by 2050. I have asked the EPA to inquire into updating the ministerial statement under which the project operates to ensure these targets are enforceable and subject to transporting measures. And it's fluff. So my question is, if we're one of the smallest CO2 producing countries in the world, we're tiny. Why are we spending so much money and damaging our economy so badly for like a drop in the ocean when you got places like China who I've reported over 2,000 coal-fired power stations will be opening up in China over the next 5 years. Like, that's insane. So the hypocrisy of the government saying, "Oh, we got to do our thing." If you really, yeah, I just it dumbfounds me how daft some of these people can be. I find this lady just shocking. I thoroughly do not enjoy reading her press releases just because it just. Bleh. I just can't stand. I can't stand it, to be honest with you. All right, so before we get into more on that one, so what I would like to do, so for anyone that's still on the chat, show your comments in. Do you think I've been over strict on Jade, or whatever her name was, the environmental minister? Do you think just planting trees is a valid way to resolve a lot of these issues? What would you like to see the government do? Oh, by the way, if you hear a kid in the background, it's a pupil-free day today, so I do talk to me. She does say hi, but I don't want her on. So, let us know what your thoughts are. Anyway, moving on, we have a federal press release now. So, this one is from the Honourable Paul Fletcher, who is the Minister for Communications, Urban Infrastructure, Cities and the Arts. I jumped in halfway through the convo, so I didn't hear the whole thing. So pretty much what's happening is they have changed the EPA requirements for a mine site up in, well, it's not really a mine, it's a pipeline. It takes oil gas from offshore onto onshore so it can be processed into LPG gas. So what's happening, there was an EPA from back in 2007, I think it was, They've changed it to be 30% reduction in the greenhouse gases by 2030 and 100% reduction. So net zero greenhouse gas emissions 2050. So the term that's really important in there is net zero. So the way they get around that, they generally do a lot of carbon trading. So, for example, my family down south, so we have a heap of oak trees. So what happens is they're considered carbon sinks. So because they are pulling carbon out of the air, our farm has a negative carbon score, which means we take more carbon out of the air than what we actually produce. So we can get what's called a carbon credit. So these carbon credits from my farm, well, my mum's farm, can be sold to mining companies for a profit. So each year they pay a fee to the farm, and then they can produce the same amount. Let's say the carbon credit was for 1,000,000 tons of CO2 per year. So that means they can release into the atmosphere 1,000,000 tons worth of CO2 and still maintain a net zero carbon score. So it's not fixing the problem, it's just charging them more money. And then in any transaction between businesses, there's always the government takes a cut, and generally it's about 30% or whatever it is. And that's what the carbon tax was going to do. So anyone who produces carbon or trades in carbon would have to pay this carbon tax. So the environmental minister has said that. Oh, and I forgot to go into this. Woodside actually agreed to this. They're playing the woke card. They said that it was their decision to make. I'm curious about that. I wonder if that was just a PR stunt. It was in the Australian Financial Review or their comments. So if you do feel like reading it, go down. I'm not sure. The other thing you got to take into account with Woodside, they're also in the process of creating some of the largest solar powered farms in Australia. So they're very heavily investing into this natural power, natural resources, things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, especially with the coal miners, because one of the things a lot of people don't realize is when you make solar panels and you've got that piece of glass over the top, everyone thinks it's just silicon like sand out of the desert. It's not. You don't actually use any sand in the construction of the glass for the solar panels. There's too many impurities, and if you make glass out of that, it doesn't work. So they actually go mine a very, very specific quartz, and they cook it with coal. Yes, the fossil fuel coal is used in the creation of solar panels. So and this is one of the reasons why the decision by Kirkup to close down Collie for they want to get rid of the coal mine. You still need coal to make solar panels. You still need coal for a lot of things. To make steel, you need coal as a carbon substitute. You can't have steel with iron and nothing. You've got to have iron and carbon to make it. So there's a lot of these things that people don't understand, and they're just reacting to headlines, and they go, oh, we got to do this, and they don't actually understand what's going on. Anyway. So that's what the conversation was about. I personally think the environmental minister is pushing too hard to try and preserve her job and try and make herself look important. If you really, really wanted to have a true net zero emission from a lot of these mining companies or companies that manufacture stuff, there's a lot of like bad chemicals released in the production of whatever they're making. Make it something simple that the businesses can easily do and achieve. So for every ton of carbon you produce, you've got to have X amount of trees. Let's say you only produce 0.2 of a ton. Well, then you farm and harvest and create 0.2 of a ton worth of oxygen via the tree system. Trees are awesome. Trees are brilliant. You can use it for so many things. And on top of that, birds live in them. You get wood for your fires, which are awesome. You can make furniture out of them. And it's something that you're always going to need wood. So I just don't get why they don't make it more simple. Anyway, now something that is very, very relevant to myself because I used to live in this area. I travel down this road quite a bit. So we got a press release from the Honourable Paul Fletcher. Pretty much. So trees, again, they're just by far the best carbon sink. So we just had a comment come through from Inferno Insomnia. Wow, my dyslexia is really playing up today. So pretty much we've cleared hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hectares of land. Like, I'm not a granny, I'm not a tree hugger and all that sort of stuff. I just enjoy clean air. And the best way to get clean air is literally trees. The more trees you plant, the better, the less impact carbons I have on. The other thing as well, if you allow the sun to hit direct onto concrete, it gets extremely hot. and that's why cities generally have a much higher average temperature than what the surrounding areas have. It's just there's so much concrete. So if you have trees everywhere, like through car parks and normal garden and all that sort of stuff, the trees, because the concrete is now in shade rather than direct sunlight, will naturally reduce temperature. Get a lot more birds in the environment, stuff like that. So trees are just fantastic. Like, again, just plant more trees. Like, go for it. If you ever saw my garden, it's full of trees. But anyway, moving on. So this is from the Honourable Paul Fletcher, the Honourable Mark McGowan, and the Honourable Rita Saffioti. So this is the first Liberal press release I've actually had in a long time. This is actually from government. So this was released at 9:30 a.m. So that would have been what, 7:30 their time. Okay, so construction underway to fix one of WA's most dangerous intersections. It is. This road is insane. The amount of crashes I've seen here, and the problem is there's a lot of trucks involved as well. So these crashes aren't small. Major works improve safety and bust congestion at one of Perth's most dangerous intersections. The Leach Highway Welshpool Road interchange is underway. Construction will be completed by the Leach Welshpool Alliance, a consortium made up of local contractors Giorgio Group Pty Limited, BG&E Pty Limited, and Golder Associations Pty Limited. Giorgio Group does a huge amount of construction, both private and government-based stuff. They've been around for decades. Like, I've done, when I was doing security work, I've actually done some on-site security work with them. Not a bad company, actually. I didn't mind them. A couple of their bosses, but that's just on-site bosses. They're always a bit of a pain. The 163 million project is anticipated to create and support up to 600 jobs. The interchange upgrade will improve the dangerous and second most congested intersection in WA, with 223 crashes recorded between 2015 and 2019, of which 204 were rear-end collisions. So that's very, very dangerous. People who haven't been in a very severe accident before, when you get hit from the rear, a lot of the time the bolts in the chair snap. So what happens is the person in the car gets shot out the back of the car. All sorts of neck injuries. And when you're shooting that way, your seatbelt won't save you. It won't grab you. Your seatbelt is designed to stop you from going forwards, but when you get rear-ended, you go shooting back. And that's why in car racing, they've got the 4-point safety harness, because you've got straps over both shoulders that stops you flying out the back if you get hit in the back. Okay, so back to this. The project will deliver a new grade separated intersection with Leach Highway bridging over Welshpool Road at an at-grade roundabout at the intersection of Leach Highway and Welshpool Road. Hang on, the project will deliver a new grade separated intersection. So the two roads are not be separated, with Leach Highway bridging over Welshpool Road at a grade roundabout at the intersection of Leach Highway and Welshpool Road. Upgrade to Leach Highway Bridge over rail south of the. Okay, so it looks like there will be two bridges going in, one over the train tracks, one over Welshpool Road, and by the looks of it, it's going to be one of those bridges where, as you're going over, there's a roundabout to get on, and then a roundabout to get on the other side. By the sounds of it, it's going to be very similar to the Dunreath intersection where the Perth Airport is on Tonkin Highway. So I actually don't mind that. I think that will do very, very well for reducing traffic. I just hope they don't put more traffic lights in. I don't think traffic lights work. I much prefer to see roundabouts because it keeps the traffic flowing. You don't lose that time in between red lights. Here we go. The design of the interchange will improve traffic flow and is expected to reduce peak times travels while easing pressure on the local road network. The project is jointly funded with the Morrison government and the West Australian government, each contributing $68. Beautiful. Now, this is a federal press release. Mark McGowan gets first comments, which I find interesting, coming from the Western Australia Parliament, not the Labor Party, the Western Australian Parliament. The important upgrades will fix one of WA's most dangerous intersections where hundreds of crashes have occurred in the recent years. The work is being delivered by a consortium of local companies and will create and support about 600 local jobs. This is all part of our plan to support local jobs and the economy through COVID-19 while delivering important upgrades to our transport network. That is pretty much on the end of every single one of these press releases from Mark McGowan. I don't even know if he actually said this or not. I'm wondering if it's just a cut and paste. That's one thing I have to give Labor credit for. Every single time they do anything, they're pushing jobs, COVID recovery. You know exactly what you don't get with Labor. A lot of bullshit, a lot of talk about jobs, and a lot of jobs about recovering from which they caused a lot of these problems. Now, let's go have a look at what Paul Fletcher has to say, the Federal Minister for Communications, Urban Infrastructure, Cities and the Arts, Paul Fletcher. This project will provide Perth drivers with a safer and more efficient east-west freight connection, particularly between Fremantle in the industrial areas of Kewdale and Welshpool. How about just building Row 8? Have them both. Have the Metronet and Row 8. They're both needed. And this is one of the things that really, really frustrates me about the Labor government. If it's not their policy, they don't want anything to do with it to the point where they'll fight it non-stop. Row 8 is a necessary evil. Even if Fremantle Wharf is closed, the amount of traffic coming down that road, you need to get the cars off High Street, sorry, not High Street, High Road, South Street, Leach Highway. The traffic is insane. Like, it is truly insane. And you're seeing how many crashes have been caused by this. So just build Row 8. Stupid. Anyway, about 50,000 vehicles pass through this intersection every weekday, with the area servicing key commercial activities in local industrial areas, Perth Airport, Kewdale Freight Terminal and surrounding residential areas. This project is one of many crucial infrastructure projects to receive funding from the Morrison government as part of the record 110 billion, that's with a B, not N, 10-year infrastructure investment pipeline. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at the cut and paste comments from Mark McGowan. And then the comments from Paul Fletcher. So first of all, he knows what area is affected by this road, this interchange. Knows the stats about how many cars are going through that area and what areas will receive benefits from fixing this. Knows exactly where the money's coming from. So this shows to me that Paul Fletcher actually understands and cares and gives a shit about what's going on in this area. Yeah, nah. COVID and jobs. Let's move on. Okay, so let's have a talk about Rita Saffioti, the Transport Minister. The Leach Highway and Welshpool Road interchange is a well-known pinch point. So the upgrades will improve safety, ease congestion, encourage better flow of traffic, as well as saving commuters travel time during hours. Combined with our level crossing removal along the Armidale line, this will completely transform the corridor. Seems like Rita has a bit more understanding of what's actually going on in the area, but again, not much. I find it amazing that Paul knows exactly what's going on in that area, and I don't know if he lives in WA or not, but he's a federal guy, so he's got to deal with all of Australia. Rita, who's only dealing with WA, is. So comments from federal member for Swan, the Honourable Steve Irons, MP. I wonder if he's federal Liberals. Just bear with me for. Let's go find out. Because this is the first time I've seen a federal member get to Liberal Party. Nice. So out of the 20,000 press releases that I've done, probably close to like 3 or 4, we're finally getting a lower house member of parliament. Okay, so the road separation of Leach Highway and Welshpool Road will be a fantastic outcome for the 50,000 users per day. I have been a long-time supporter and advocate of upgrading this intersection, which is currently ranked as one of the WA's most dangerous, one of the most dangerous in WA. These works are a part of the ongoing commitment by the Morrison government to the recovery of our economy and to the people's home. These works are a part of the ongoing commitment by the Morrison government to the recovery of our economy and to get people home safer and sooner. funding for congestion busting infrastructure. Again, the Liberal guy seems to understand what's going on. It is his home area, which is understandable. I just find it a little bit disappointing from the Labor Party that they don't really. They seem to just jump on board of this one because they can, and they're trying to take some limelight away from Labor for something that, from Liberals for something that they've actually done quite well. Finally, the other bit that I find quite disappointing. So Minister Fletcher and Minister Saffioti for comments. There's nothing for Stephen Hines if we were trying to get a comment for this one. So again, and then you can't say there's no room for this one. You can add your contact details for everyone associated with this press release. So yeah, it's just, again, like going back to doing these press releases, I find it absolutely amazing that we are getting all these comments from the Honourable Martin Gowan, Roger Cook, Don Punch. We get a lot from Rita Saffioti. We get a lot from them. Paul Paplia, the police minister. We get a lot from those. Like, it's pretty much those five will comment daily. Nearly every single day we'll get a comment. We get 3 or 4 press releases from those 3 or 4 people, 5 people. When we do get, I've never had a opposition member of parliament who's in the shadow cabinet. I've never seen a single press release from any of them. On top of that, there was a few which were in Andrew Hasey's area. He made comments and press releases on social media, Facebook, and all that sort of stuff, but nothing formally came through the House, even though he had a proper press release for it. The media contact details for Liberals are constantly missing off these things. The amount of comments from Liberal members of Parliament, Liberals, opposition, and Nationals, I have not seen a single thing from Nationals, anything or on any of these press releases, which I find more than a little bit alarming, considering these press releases are not from the Labor Party. They actually come from, just don't pull up the email address here, the Department of Premier and Cabinet. So the Cabinet, I find it concerning that there should be press releases not just from the Premier. Well, obviously it's from the Premier because of the Cabinet, but the comments from the opposition, which is a joint, so working with Liberals and Labor, or Nationals and Labor, or Nationals and anyone else, or the Greens and someone else. There should be comments from all parties associated with this, because this is not the press release for Labor. I need to stress that. I find it interesting, very, very interesting that it does. So, anyway, so that's all the press releases for today. So for those who jumped onto the stream early and got to listen to some really, really awesome music, that is actually a local Gregor. So make sure you reach out to him on the SoundCloud side of things. He's got some very interesting music. I must admit, I'm not into country and rock and roll, but I quite enjoy his music. So make sure you jump over SoundCloud. The description's actually in the chat. So also, if you want to see listen to these recordings later, they do go up on Facebook, social media. So please reach out to Carter's Corner on the Facebook and YouTube. And for those who like hearing these and seeing them, it actually does cost quite a bit of money to get these out there. So please jump onto my Patreon, which is patreon.com/corner. Anyway, I'm going to call it here for today. This has been Carter's Corner Daily for the 8th of June. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'm Travis Carter, and I'll see you tomorrow. 30.